Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
So, when I look at this and we read about what's going on with AI, which I know is an area of expertise for you as well, looking into the future, this was a very conventional military situation with bombing campaigns and blockades. What do you think Iran potentially, as they try to survive the IRGC, what do they shift to as a power play?
Well, you're absolutely right. They're going to have to look at different asymmetric threats. They tried a traditional asymmetric threat, get a long-range, intermediate-range ballistic missile and a nuclear weapon, or a long-range intercontinental ballistic missile and a nuclear weapon. We prevented that. So what they will look at now, I think, are more cyber tools, bio-based tools, so whatever they feel that they can use to bring pressure on the United States, to get leverage on the United States. Their cyber attacks were effective against singular companies in the United States during the last 45 days, not against sectors like China and Russia. They can affect like water and energy, full sectors.
Yeah. That's why we need to pay really close attention to these new developments in these AI hacking programs, essentially, that are unleashed in a lot of places now. And we'll see what's next. Admiral Montgomery, thank you very much. Great to have you with us today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, that video you just saw there, it should send a chill down your spine while the world watches missiles and drones and jets. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Basij on the ground there are waging a relentless, invisible war in cyberspace. They're targeting our banks, our power grids, our hospitals, and our way of life. Cyber is the unseen battlefield of the 21st century. It's silent, it's deniable, and it can destroy infrastructure or cause real-world destruction without firing a shot. Iranian hackers are already probing and attacking American targets, and the threat of cyber ops triggering physical damage is no longer science fiction. We did it a long time ago inside Iran, by the way, and it's happening right now. This isn't just a problem for the Pentagon or our allied military forces, though, folks. It's a direct threat to every American family, every business, and every community. Today, we're cutting through the noise on this growing danger, and joining me for the show is Mark Bowling. Mark serves as Chief Information Security Officer and Data Privacy Officer at Signal Advisors and Signal Wealth, and also at First Day Healthcare. He's the founder and principal visionary of Marlin Data Security Audit, a former U.S. Navy nuclear engineering officer. He spent more than 20 years as an FBI special agent, a supervisory agent, and a field executive leading cyber, counterterrorism, and counterintelligence programs. He's currently completing his PhD in electrical and electronics engineering with research focused on the cybersecurity of our critical infrastructures, including the electrical power grid. Mark, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Well, thank you very much, Colonel. It's great to be here. I think what we find out when we look at the last 14 months is what we have now is what I call the largest real world data set that you could have. Prior to 14 months ago, before October 7th of 2023, and of course, prior to the Iranian conflict, a lot of this was theoretical. What we saw, we saw quite a bit of activity between the Russians and the Ukrainians, but now we've seen what we do, and we've seen what our adversaries do in what I call a real world, a full war environment, an operationalized war environment. And so there's two findings that stand out. And to me, the first one is that there was what I call the maximalist height, which is lions and tigers and bears on lion. I'm not poking at your observations,
Yeah.
But everybody was saying the end of the world was coming, and a lot of the people who were saying that the end of the world was coming were a lot of vendors, people who wanted to sell cyber equipment and cyber capabilities. The other thing we saw is that the authoritarian states, people like Iran, who have invested the most in what I call asymmetric warfare through cyber, are the ones who are most constrained because they exerted a certain amount of domestic control over their own internet. The Iranians shut down the internet in Iran. And when they did, they shut down their ability for the IRGC to directly attack US assets. So now all of those attacks are having to come through what we consider, I would call them, it's more coercive signaling is the term I like to use, but they are using non-militarized resources. They're more like they've outsourced to activist groups who are involved, and you have like cyber avengers, and so you don't really see the IRGC engaging in what I would call true war fighting right now. So was it as bad on the receiving end? No. I do think that what we do know is that during the first few hours of Operation Epic Fury, excuse me, for about 60 hours, there were considerable successes by the United States and by Israel. Israeli officials actually called the opening cyber salvos of Epic Fury the largest cyber attack in history. We do know that there were impacts on Iranian SAM sites. To me, the question is understanding how effective that was originally and how ineffective any kind of counterattacks were by the Iranians against US infrastructures and certainly against Israeli infrastructures. They saw they were ineffective, so they shut down their own internet for two reasons. So that their internal opposition wouldn't be able to communicate with the outside, and so that we wouldn't be able to use our normal vectors to attack Iran. And so I think the two things that we've learned, one is that maybe our biggest fears were not realized, what I would call the maximalist hype. Now, it is still there. I'm not trying to tamp it down. I'm not trying to underplay how effective cyber warfare can be. But they tried to attack us, and they were not as successful as they otherwise could have been. But that they were able, when they shut down their own internet, to reduce both their attack vector from us, but it almost completely eliminated their attack vector to us. Yeah. Now, go ahead.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that. So, for the uninitiated, the Iranians have like this huge suppression apparatus on their interweb and internet capabilities that they can. Is it like turning it on and turning it off, or do they have to go through a complex series of commands to either do it or undo it? So they can't just like open the window momentarily, send out an offensive cyber package, and then close that window?
Well, I think that what they've done is they've completely isolated the interior telephone network. All of these, all of the internet activity goes through what we call layer 2 circuits. And those layer 2 circuits, so there's 7 layers in what's called the OSI model, Open System Interface model. The second is what we call the switching layer. And the switching layer would be switches inside a corporate environment, but they're basically telephone lines. There's T1 lines, T4 lines, T24 lines. And basically what Iran did is they went and they unplugged all those T24 lines that connected their internal telephone system and their internal digital network to the outside world. Now, they may be keeping some to Russia, they may be keeping some to China, maybe to Turkey, but the standard circuits, the standard routes that businesses in the United States or businesses outside of their selected allies would be able to communicate with them, those have been completely isolated. Now, I'm sure that the NSA and Cybercom have the ability to route into Iran through Russia or China, but why play that card for this target? And So to me, the modest but still effective performance of cyber warfare as an asymmetric warfare component, we've seen now empirically over the last 60 days, and before that, the previous 14 months, just how limited it can be. You still have to put ordnance on target. Mm-hmm. To stop something, you still have to put ordnance on target. Now, one thing that I did not see in my research, and because my research was focused primarily on technology, but I do think that the Israelis are probably quite effectively using signals intelligence through cyber warfare means to identify locations of members of the regime. The Israelis have been so incredibly effective at reducing the leadership of the regime. And I am 100% convinced that their effectiveness was driven by intelligence gathered through cyber means.
Yes, some of the complexities of that issue right there, being able to gain signals intelligence through the cyber domain and using cyber tools, it creates some complexities in decision making on whether we use our offensive tools to make things happen, and shut down possibly avenues of information, doesn't it?
It does, and I think what I want to do is I want to look at two exhibits. One is Russia as an exhibit, if it's okay with you, and then Iran as exhibit B. So Russia is going to be exhibit A, and what we saw initially in the after the invasion of Ukraine, and the invasion of Ukraine has been a categoric failure for Russia. Okay, and I'm a big supporter of the Iranian people, or not the Iranian, the Ukrainian people against the Russian aggression, against Putin's aggression. But we saw Sandworm. It's a tool that was developed ostensibly by Russian intelligence to go after Ukraine's critical infrastructures. It had some success initially, but once again, the success was moderated over time. And so what they did is they pivoted almost from the strategic objectives, using Sandworm as a tool, to what we would consider to be more frontline tactical objectives through what's known as infamous Chisel, where they would go after signal accounts and telegram accounts from stolen devices or captured devices, so they could actually make tactical targeting by reaching out to people. You could almost say that they were using it for signals intelligence for targeting purposes, as opposed to actually achieving strategic objectives. The other thing we saw was that the Russians attacked the Polish energy infrastructure in December of 2025. 4 months ago. It was originally attributed to Sandworm, once again a Russian tool, but eventually the attribution came to be an FSB. That they're basically the Russians' FBI, an FSB tool. And so what we've seen is that most of the attacks for strategic purposes, once again, are on critical infrastructures. Early on, Russia went after Ukraine's telecommunications infrastructure. What did we do? We responded by giving them access to Elon Musk's satellite capabilities, and that really diminished the effectiveness of the Russian attacks on their on Ukrainian telecommunication infrastructure. So what we see is Russia, probably the most belligerent and perhaps the most effective, I think, other than the United States, Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and Israel. Russia and China are probably right up there. I wouldn't say they're as good, but they're near peer. Okay, so they would be the most cyber mature, near peer belligerent
let's
nation.
Pick up on the Iran piece after this break.
Okay,
Mark,
sure.
But what I'm hearing is, like you said at the beginning, you still have to go kinetic. The cyber domain is a great tool, but even the large systemic-wide cyber attacks, like on the grid, they're not persistent because they can be alleviated through various means. All right, we'll be right back with cyber expert Mark Bowling here on the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and the part of the war you don't hear much about, the cyber war, and all associated with it is what we're talking about with Iran. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
So Iranian hackers are retaliating. They're saying that they targeted Stryker, which is a U.S. medical device maker. They absolutely wiped this company, like erased all their systems. Their employees' mobile devices got wiped. They're saying this is in retaliation of the bombing of the all-girls school. I got this text message in my DMs this morning. I didn't know it was legit until the story broke, but they were just like, hey, we are hard down. They've wiped our systems, pushed OS resets to personal phones, work profiles, computers. Many servers have been wiped clean. All the work apps are down. The entire company is at a complete stop. The servers at the data center are inaccessible. They've accessed through our admin accounts, put their signature and artwork on all login pages. This is classic hacktivist stuff. And they sent emails to the executives taking ownership of the attack. They're not even trying to hide who's doing it. The news is starting to break as people are waking up and realizing what's going on. Companies put out an announcement saying, yep, we're experiencing a global network disruption affecting our Windows environments. But you don't see this kind of attack often. Wiped. 200,000 systems wiped. This isn't ransomware. This isn't espionage. This was a cyber attack in every sense of the word.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're talking about the cyber part of the war with Iran and other adversaries' potential involvement. My guest today is Mark Bowling. And Mark, I wanted to show that little clip there. It's one of the few pieces of public information that's out there about a specific target. But the things that stood out to me were basically what you were saying. These guys have been reduced to maybe like a hacking type of cyber attack instead of being able to attack an entire grid system like our electrical grid or the telephone system. I think they were able to take down parts of the AT&T network early on the phone side, but it was very non-persistent and dissipated fairly quickly and was handled there. But these aren't the type of cyber attacks that we and the Israelis have been doing on them, are they?
No. This is the attack on Stryker is what I would call a temper tantrum. Okay, it's a temper tantrum. They went in and they didn't even get what they really could have gotten out of this attack. We see probably 30 attacks of this magnitude a year directed at hospitals, healthcare providers, our medical infrastructure, and usually they're by Russian organized crime. It's almost entirely Russian organized crime. There's one specific group that does the majority of it. And what they did is instead of deleting everything and encrypting everything and walking away and asking for a ransom, all they did was just delete everything. They hit the kill switches. And now you have Stryker having to rebuild generally from stored media, from backup. Stryker's not going to be able to do that. The resetting of the phones is an inconvenience for the people who work at the company, the devs and the salesmen and the account executives. That happens. And once again, I'm not trying to minimize it, but I'm not sure what strategic objective that impacted the United States or Israel's warfighting capability was. It was a temper tantrum. What they did is they found a softer target, and then they wiped the softer target. Is it bad? Yes. Is it going to impact the how much Stryker's going to pay in the future for breach insurance? Yes. Is it potentially going to affect the value of Stryker's stock, or if they're part of a holding company, a private equity company, will it affect their profits? Yes. But did it impact at all the United States warfighting capability? No. So I think while that is a relevant clip and shows the potential threats, we're seeing this all the time. We see it with hospitals in San Diego, and we see it with hospitals in Tennessee. This is happening. And so to me, the response to that is, oh my, the Iranians are coming? No, it's, oh my, the Iranians have gone to they've gone to the Little League field, and they're queuing up T-ball, and they're calling it a win. But they're not actually successfully impacting our warfighting capability. I will say one thing, and I want to talk about this event. There was a water supply company, I believe, up in North Dakota. It was a municipal water provider. Somebody attacked it, okay? And this is the one thing that I find very interesting. Oh my, they're going to attack our water infrastructure. Oh my, they're going to attack our electrical power distribution infrastructure. The United States has the most robust electrical power distribution infrastructure in the world. And guess what? We could suffer cyber attacks. You know what's going to happen? All the blue collar guys that go out and fix the wires and fix the switching centers whenever we have a big ice storm up north, they're going to go out and manually control the breakers.
Yeah.
And they'll be on radios. And the same thing happened at the water company in North Dakota. You had all the blue collar guys come in who actually know how to fix the valves and know how to fix the pipes, the pipe fitters and the plumbers. And they came in, they manually operated the system. All right. So what happened is, did they shut down water? No. Is this water company going to have to pay a lot of overtime? Yeah. And what they're going to go is they're going to go to the Public Utility Commission and say, hey, for the next 6 months, we need to raise our rates so we can pay for this overtime. And so there's a lot of concern about how people can impact our critical infrastructure, but our critical infrastructure is robust. The one place where I think that it was very interesting was the attack on Colonial Pipeline on the East Coast. And it was a very successful attack on the enterprise. So there's the operational technology side, which is I call the control plane, controls all the technology. And then there's the enterprise side. The Russians successfully attacked the enterprise side, and it was out of an abundance of caution that Colonial said, hey, we want to make sure that the control plane is pure. So we're going to shut down the control plane until we can validate that even though they attacked our enterprise network, the one connected to the internet, yada, yada, that could be infected because somebody clicked on a phishing email, they were actually acting out of an abundance of caution. They could have kept Colonial Pipeline working day after day after day. And so once again, I'm not trying to say that, oh, the Russians aren't a threat or the Chinese aren't a threat or the Iranians aren't a threat, although I don't think the Iranians are much of a threat because they shut down their internet and they're working through Cyber Avengers or some other, activist, Islamic activist group. But the fact is we have not suffered the kind of what I would call strategic level damage based on those attacks. Does that mean we can go to sleep and not care? No. It means that we're in a pretty good spot. That answer your question, Colonel?
Yeah, it does. It just shows you. We've got a question in the audience. We'll take that in a second. But it just shows that you have to have a level of sophistication in your attack planning and the use of multiple domains and multiple types of systems. Just a cyber attack or a hacking attack isn't going to do it for you. One of the things that they probably learned from the Venezuela and the Iran Epic Fury operation in the opening hours is the combination of using cyber information and kinetic attack from all different directions and in parallel and simultaneous to each other because they leverage each other's effects. They multiply the effects of each other if they're striking the right targets. So let's go ahead and take this question from the audience. Shell is our host over there. Shell, go ahead.
We have AJ, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. My question is, sir, within the context of the Operation Epic Fury, what is your opinion on actually hitting the Islamic Republic of Iran's power grid and infrastructure? Thank you very much.
So this is actually more of a political, I'm going to call it a hearts and minds question than it is a strategic question. Remember, we're not there to reduce the entire nation of Iran to rubble. If we wanted to do that, we could. We could carpet bomb with B-52s. We don't want to wholesale lose the hearts and minds of the majority of the people in Iran who are in opposition to the Islamic regime. Okay, so let's talk about, on one hand, you have the Islamic regime, which is supported by basically the Nazi Party and the SS of Iran, which is the IRGC. And then you have the people of Iran who, you know, maybe they were sick and tired several years ago of the excesses of the royal family, the Shah's royal family, and so they were tolerant of, you know, the Ayatollah Khomeini coming in 1979. They've now seen that that was a train wreck. They don't want to have to wear, the women don't want to have to wear tents. They want to be able to go to school. The number of people, the number of executions that have happened in Iran right now because of the regime, we're talking musicians, we're talking wrestlers, we're talking Olympic athletes, we're talking family members of the women's soccer team. This is a brutal regime that's reminiscent of Pol Pot in Cambodia. It's reminiscent of Chairman Mao and the Cultural Revolution in Red China. It's reminiscent of what Hitler did in Nazi Germany. Okay, so I think the Iranian people are beautiful people. They're descended from the Azeris and the Armenians and the Persians. So when I talk about Iran, I want you to understand that I am primarily focusing on the apparatus of the Islamic regime and the religious ruling class, and then the IRGC, which is basically the Gestapo and the SS of the government organization that is very oppressive. So what we don't want to do is bomb their entire energy infrastructure into oblivion. We could level an island, Karg Island, I believe it is, right there in the Straits of Hormuz. We could just destroy it. 90% of Iranian crude oil goes through terminals on that island. Yeah. We could destroy it. We're not going to. Why? Because we don't hate the Iranian people. We love the Iranian people. We love the Persians. We love the Azeris. We love the Armenians. We love all the ethnic groups. We're just tired of an Islamic regime that for 47 years has been chanting death to America, that killed 247 Marines in 1983. I was born in Lebanon, okay? So I've been tracking this region for a while. And what we need to have happen is we need to continue to degrade the apparatus of this regime. We need to continue to degrade the leadership of this regime, but we don't need to destroy an economy. We don't need to destroy the roads. Perhaps we have to destroy some bridges to make a point. And there are very, very good intelligence analysts who are giving recommendations to the targeting officers for the Air Force and the Navy as they make determinations what to target next. And so I don't want to second guess their choices and their selections. But I think we are walking a very, very fine line between how do we fight the regime while we minimize damage to the people who I believe largely are, and we know from intelligence are largely supportive of our attacks on the regime. That answers the question.
One of the things you're not seeing, one of the things we're not seeing is massive numbers of civilian casualties.
Yes.
Because of the way targeting. But let there be no doubt, we are destroying the regime's capabilities, every piece of it every day. And when we come back, I want to talk to you about how cyber can be used to create physical destruction. America has one example of that, the Stuxnet virus that took out a lot of their enriched uranium centrifuges many years ago. So we'll be right back with cyber expert Mark Bowling. It's Small War Monday. We're talking Epic Fury.
Do we have the capability, because I've always thought about this, do we have the capability quickly to put something up? Like, let's say that we were to take out part of the grid, and then let's say that does help to bring them to the table, or even regime change, or even you can have a semi-friendly regime coming up in the future that might allow us to, let's just say, help to put it back up, like quickly. Yeah. Do we have that capability to put something back up quickly that's temporary so that they can get back online?
Yeah, I think so. Within a few days, and what the problem is when we do something like this. Usually, when you destroy it, you get better the next time. And again, I think if we get some kind of deal, the United States would be the first to help Iran rebuild. And the president even said that himself today. But the second thing is, if we take it out, let's say cyber, or we do something on the back end where the thing's not physically destroyed, I think that would be an advantage that we might have. The other issue, though, is we're giving away all of our secrets. You heard the president say today about how many men were involved with this mission, and the chairman didn't want to mention that. We're just completely showing our military capability and our industrial capability at every turn here. But yeah, we could likely, I think it'll be non-kinetic. He'll go after the bridges, maybe some of the physical infrastructure first, but I think he'll try to take the electrical grid out and then even the power plants and the refineries out with cyber, and use that as a way to shut them down. That way, they're not physically destroyed, and they can easily be spun back up.
Oh, there you go.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And my guest today is Mark Bowling, Chief Information Security Officer and Data Privacy Officer at a major company, and former FBI agent and supervisory agent in the counterintelligence cyber type world, and a U.S. Navy veteran. And I want to thank you for your service, Mark. Before I forget to do that, submariners have a special place in my heart. I worked with many of them in nuclear operations on the Joint Staff when I was a major. It's a very interesting community.
It's a great community, and of course, thank you for your service. I think my total service was 27 years, so you got me by about 5, I think.
No worries. So fortunately for me, you're studying critical infrastructure on the electrical grid side too in your PhD program, and you've got a lot of experience across multiple types of these operations from different perspectives for decades now. So I wanted to play that clip because the gentleman was talking about using non-kinetic, going after the electrical grid. I worked in utility operations for a few years after I left the Air Force. on the distribution side and safety and technical training. So I have a basic understanding of the digital controls that we use and the protections we have on them. But I wanted to ask, is it possible that we would want to do, and we're just speculating now, to try to describe for the average citizen how this might work? Most utility grid systems use similar types of controls if you're digital, and they work pretty much almost the same way around the world because the technology was developed in parallel for the most part, and they're switching out parts from different parts of the world all the time.
Right.
But some of these nodes that feed the IRGC directly, we would want to damage them to the point where it would take them a long time to destroy. But others, as you were speaking about earlier, is maybe we want a non-persistent effect, a total blackout for 48 hours, those kind of things to disrupt their operation and keep them from repairing the ones that we break. Is that an approach that we would likely use to go after a system like the grid system?
So let me just tell you how the grid is here in the United States. And if you've been on the distribution side, you've probably learned a little bit about this. We have the bulk electrical system. That's kind of at the highest level. We have, I think, 7 different, they're RTOs, regional transmission operators, or ISOs, integrated systems operators. And they manage the flow of large amounts of electricity between what we call distribution providers. So if you were going to try to attack the US grid, you would want to go after one of the RTOs, regional transmission operators, or ISOs, integrated systems operators. That would be pretty tough because their enterprise network, remember how I talked about the enterprise network and the control plane? The control plane is isolated from the internet using what the North American Energy Reliability Corporation calls the electronic security perimeter. Okay, so it's basically an air gap system. You can get in and mess with their records and their financials and their HR, but you probably can't mess with the control plane of the bulk electrical system. At the actual distribution provider level, it may be a little bit easier. I don't think it's enormously easier, just because the best practices in the electrical power distribution community are pretty good. And even if you do shut something down, they're going to send a linesman and our supervisor out there in their truck, and they're going to manually manage the grid at a switchgear. We have people who do that because those switchgears were my electronics technicians or my electricians' mates. They manage the power distribution either on a sub or on a carrier. So we have good people, so we have good best practices to fall back on. In Iran, I'm not sure exactly how discrete that is. I'm sure that, as in most, I would call them near peer or second world nations, that their electrical power isn't as consistent as ours is here in the United States. Do I think it's theoretically possible? Yes. Many things are theoretically possible. Stuxnet proved that. Are we going to utilize our capabilities and show as many of the cards as we would have to show in order to achieve what I would consider to be a very limited strategic objective? Okay, so let's assume that a lot of their devices called digital control systems, industrial control systems, PLCs, programmable logic controllers. Those are the things that are going to actually open the breakers and close the breakers and spool up the standby diesel generators, all of those components that are part of a large, well-balanced grid. Many of those are probably produced in China. In many ways, Iran has been a rump state of China for a while. Are we going to demonstrate that we have the ability to hack into Chinese industrial control systems that control the power grid to go after Iran? Probably not. We're gonna save that for when Xi Jinping decides to go across the Straits of Formosa. Okay, so I think Yes, do we have the capability? Yeah, because the guys up in Fort Meade and the guys at Cybercom and half a dozen, Army units and Air Force units. You have the Air Force Information Warfare Center down in San Antonio. Can we do it? Yeah. Should we show the world that we can do it for the sake of Iran? I don't know. I don't think we should, because we're going to have bigger fish to fry in the future. And I don't want China. I don't want Xi Jinping or the generals in charge of the People's Liberation Army to know the limits of our capabilities or the extent of our capabilities. So I think let's keep that card in our pocket. We can play that ace when we need to.
Yeah, and we have the tools to do kinetic and non-kinetic attacks on their grid system without making the damage permanent.
Exactly.
Quite honestly, we have a great JDAM warhead that
absolutely
does very well on substations, especially.
Yeah.
But what if Iran? What would it take for Iran to attack a subset of our grid system? Would they have to get help from China, or do they have the capability to do that? They're just not using it because of the circumstances you described earlier.
So we've seen that they have limited capabilities. We do know that. I think that I've mentioned the name before. I have it somewhere. Yeah, it's a Cyber Avengers. They were able to demonstrate that they could attack Unitronics. Remember how I talked about industrial control systems?
Right.
They were able to switch from Unitronics to Rockwell Automation. Used to be who was it? Square D. Years and years ago, Square D had all the programmable logic controllers, and then Rockwell bought them. They renamed them Rockwell Automation. So I think Cyber Avengers has the ability to go after programmable logic controllers. But that's kind of like going after the very bottom layer of the stack, okay? Mm-hmm. If you really want to go after an industrial control system, you need to be able to get into what they call the HMI, the human machine interface. And so you have the programmable logic controllers that are actually controlling the mechanical and electrical systems, plumbing systems, valves, switches, breakers, etc. But on top of that, then you have kind of the computerized systems where you actually manage the programs, the ladder logic or whatever other industrial logic that you use to manage all of those switches, those switch controllers. What they've demonstrated is that they could hack into the lower level, but maybe they haven't been able to shut down the entire system. Perhaps that's what they were able to do at a small water utility in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they've demonstrated that they could do that at a strategic scope. Okay, so if you were going to do that attack, you'd do that someplace around, Eglin Air Force Base down in the Emerald Coast. So you do that somewhere in Tampa, where CENTCOM is, or you'd want to do that where SOCOM is, or you want to do that where the Night Stalkers fly out of. But they're not able to do that. They're able to hit a water utility in North Dakota. So do they have the capability? Maybe in the best case scenario, but that doesn't mean we don't need to pay attention to it. I guarantee.
Well, we know the Chinese are helping them.
Absolutely.
We just intercepted the ship trying to run the blockade.
Exactly.
And the early reporting is it's got materials for making rocket engines and those kind of things on it. So we know the Chinese are helping them, and as a nation, a larger nation state, at least a near peer, if not a peer to us already, they likely have the capability to do that. And it's pretty easy to hide where an attack in the cyber domain is coming from and make it look like somewhere else, isn't it?
Sure. And once again, here's what's funny is Iran has shut off their internet. Our internet is still wide open.
Yeah, we're on it.
We're on it. Our internet is still wide open. We're not worried about that. I will tell you one thing and I want to make sure that we have to understand Cyber warfare is what I call a complementary capability. It's like signal intelligence. It's like human intelligence. It's a complementary capability that makes the rest of your war fighting better. And I tell you where we really took a hit was when China did a very, very successful intelligence operation called Volt Typhoon, where they literally hacked into our telecommunication carriers, our major carriers, and they had persistence. And when they were able to establish persistence, I believe they probably captured a tremendous amount of operational intelligence. And what they were able to capture was they were able to see, well, who are the human intelligence targets that the FBI and the various OSIs and HSI are tracking, have in collection on, have either Title IIIs or have court-ordered what's it called? It's where you capture all of the toll register information, all of the tolling information, so you know who's calling who and what time and how long the call was for. To me, that is a huge amount of operational intelligence from the counterintelligence and counterespionage perspective. So where I think cyber really gives you the leg up is it enhances your intelligence operations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, I'm sure the Israelis are all over the Iranian telecommunications grid, and that's why they're able to target the leadership.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. We got to take our last break. When we come back, we'll see a clip about the force, the state of the cyber warrior force,
Okay.
and there's some personnel things. And I want to ask Mark to talk to us about how do we grow our force of cyber warriors when they're competing with things like big tech, who can pay a lot more money. We'll be right back with Mark Bowling.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs confirmed in early March, U.S. Cyber Command was among the first movers in Operation Epic Fury. Before a single missile was publicly acknowledged, American cyber operators were already in the fight. The digital war with Iran started before most people knew there was a war at all. That context framed everything said at this week's Cyberforce Summit in Washington, where the military's top digital officials gathered to address a problem that has nothing to do with technology and everything to do with people. The U.S. military cannot hire cyber talent fast enough to fight the wars it's already fighting. Army Lieutenant General Paul Stanton didn't dress it up, saying, "Our cyber warfighters are in persistent daily contact with adaptive adversaries," he told the summit. The fight is on. He described the old hiring process, position descriptions, job postings, resume piles, HR boards, 6 months of bureaucracy, and said flatly that by the time the government finishes hiring someone, that person's already working for someone else. He's scrapped it. He's replacing it with what he's calling surgical hiring. Technical experts paired directly with HR staff, offers made on the spot at recruiting events. At one recent event, his team handed out 47 job offers on the spot and brought 32 people into the workforce within 3 weeks. The competition they're up against is Silicon Valley. Vice Admiral Heidi Berg, head of Fleet Cyber Command, described watching a young NCO leave her team for a private company. She tried to convince him to stay, learned what the private sector was paying, and realized the military simply couldn't match it. The answer the military is leaning on isn't salary, it's authority. Cyber operators in uniform can conduct operations that no private sector employee is legally permitted to do. They get to participate in things that actually matter at a national scale, including right now, an active war. Cybercom 2.0 is the overhaul trying to fix the pipeline permanently, linking Cyber Command directly to the military branches, building specialized teams, preventing burnout, and keeping talented operators from having to give up their keyboards to get promoted. The cyber workforce problem isn't new. The Iran war just made it impossible to ignore.
Welcome back to the Rob Maida Show. It's More War Monday, and we're talking cyber war, the unseen war, the silent war, even more silent than the silent service, the submarine force that the United States fields and has for decades so effectively. And my guest today is Mark Bowling, who used to be a submariner, but now and for many, many years has been directly involved in cyber warfare, cyber security, counterintelligence. And Mark, I wanted to, when I came across this clip, I'm like, well, this sounds a lot like the military aviation community. Listen to that gentleman talk about how do we first recruit the talent and then eventually keep them when the outside world, that I know I have a son that's a cyber guy that stayed in the military for like 3 years and then left. And he's never looked back because the salary is, in some cases, 5 or 6 times more than what you could ever think about making in uniform.
Absolutely. That is a serious problem. I don't see a good solution to it. I have to tell you, that is one where, well, let's back up. That is one where it's recognized. And here's what's happening, though. So rather than taking gentlemen in uniform and women, enlisted personnel officers, warrant officers, instead of paying them what they're worth, and you can do that. The nuclear community pays obscene bonuses to retain nukes.
Aviation community.
Aviation community pays ridiculous bonuses. What happens is we let these people go. They go work for a contractor, and now we're paying the contractor $325 an hour as a subject matter expert to come work on a government contract. So part of the problem, it's not just exclusively that we're not paying people what they're worth based on their capabilities. Part of the problem is we've created an environment where it's more lucrative for somebody to go work for a contractor, do about 60%, 70%, 80% of the same job with 20% of the stupidity and headaches. They don't have to stand in formation. They don't have to do, quarters. They just show up and work, and then they make 3 to 4 times the amount they would otherwise get paid. I mean, it's almost comical what happens at places like Fort Meade. You have the person who's the technology expert, and then they go get a civilian job and increase their pay and reduce their stupidity. And then they go and they become a contractor working for the very same role that they were in. And so that is a model that I just don't think is sustainable. Mm-hmm. I mean, how much do you think Mandiant and Unit 47, Unit 42, and Recorded Future, you can just go right down the line, how much those guys are getting paid when they're doing government contracts and they're doing a lot of the same work that they used to do when they were in uniform.
Oh yeah.
It's just, do we have the capabilities? I will tell you something where I've had an idea. I'd like to see it implemented here in Arkansas. And I basically came across this. I spent a lot of time with our local Air Force, Air National Guard unit here. It's the 178th. It's a cyber squadron, and they're all National Guardsmen. Some of them One of them works for AutoZone out in Memphis. A couple of them work for Worldwide Technology up in St. Louis. Every couple of weeks they come to Little Rock for their drills, and I've gone out and done some presentations for them. We did a drill called Cyber Shield, an exercise, and I was, quote, their civilian community member. I owned the railroad company that they were trying to protect, yada yada. Really fun group of gentlemen and ladies. And the Cyber Shield exercise is so awesome because it includes the National Guardsmen, many of whom, when they're not working for, $32 an hour on the weekends for the Air National Guard, they're making $98 an hour, $130 an hour working for Worldwide Technology or Presidio or some of those other companies. I think we absolutely should expand as much as we possibly can, as much as we can possibly justify both our reserve cyber units and our National Guard cyber units. Just like we're talking by orders of magnitude. We're not talking doubling. We're talking, quintuple them, make 5 times as many or 10 times as many. Because when the bubble goes up, the cyber bubble goes up, and, Xi Jinping decides to do something stupid in 2028, we're going to have a cyber war on our hands, and these people will want to be involved. They missed the men and women they worked with in uniform. They may not have missed the 04, who was a complete sociopath.
Yeah.
But they missed the E7, they missed the E9, they missed the 03. Because the 03 went out and got a job and then hired them to go work for Worldwide Technology, and now they're all reservists together. But we should expand our, I'm going to call it cyber militia, so that when something does happen, we are able to quickly stand up the kind of defense mechanisms that we will need to have.
Yeah.
And the second thing I think we need to do in addition to that is we need to start assigning some of these units. Like we have the 178th, it's one unit. Okay. Well, maybe we need a 178th cyber squadron that's going to be assigned to Southwest Power Pool, which manages the grid in parts of 15 states. One of those regional transmission operators, that headquarters is in Little Rock. And maybe we need to have another cyber squadron, Air National Guard or Reserve Cyber Squadron, that's assigned to the state of Arkansas government.
Right.
We're going to protect, the state police. And so you have these opportunities for integration, before something happens.
Yeah, I was thinking about that yesterday on April 19th. And, the shot hurled around the world of Lexington and Concord, those were militia that were regular citizens called upon to defend their communities. And this is a threat, an active threat that hits you at the community level. It hits you at the community level. So having, I like the way you're thinking about that. Having an increase in cyber warfare units in the Guard and Reserve, and assigning them to specific tasks, regions, or specific targets that are under that threat day to day, I think is very important, because then they could not only take care of that ISO headquarters, but also look for other threats coming in around it, and eventually if they get called to active duty in a major war, then we're all synced together already. I like that idea. But it's going to take out of the box thinking, Mark, by some dude in the Pentagon that's got an SCS by his name, probably. Those guys, as we see every day, are pretty resistant to new ideas. But we have the right leadership team, political appointee wise, that might hear that idea and start giving it some serious consideration. I like it. Well, hey, man, thank you so much for joining us today. I've been wanting to do a show on cyber warfare for a long time because folks they think they understand it maybe, or they just don't understand it, and they think they hear hacking and think it's cyber warfare, etc. There's a big difference between warfare and hacking, and I think you helped explain that very well. We appreciate you.
All right, thank you very much. It was great to be on, Colonel.
Thank you. And tomorrow, folks, is Training Tuesday. Steve Baker, formerly of the Blaze, hopefully talking about January 6th pipe bomber and some other things that are going on in the independent media world. He's one of the most trustworthy out there. Hopefully we'll have him this time. Steve Baker. I'll see you then.
We have a big announcement, folks, something we've been waiting on for several months, and it's now here. It's called Bella Melt. You were on it for just 1 week when you lost 3 pounds. So in the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. It's a sugar-free fast melt caramel. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you make, we've talked about it before, this is where you produce energy